I do hope these tips have been insightful and will help you save money, will help you plan better, and will help you actualize your goal of traveling more.
This is Solo Travel Talk. Your solo travel advisor is Astrid Clements.
We've been hearing it, and you might have been saying it. Here we are at the start of the year, and you want more travel in your life this year. So let's get planning and let's get you out there. Your solo travel advisor, Astrid Clements, has some tips for you about how to time things like when to buy plane tickets, when to book hotels, when to start your pre-trip research. I'm producer Katherine O'Brien, and I love getting helpful hints that make solo travel planning easier. Astrid, a lot of people have travel more as a New Year's resolution. From your vantage point as a travel expert, what are some ways people can ensure that they actually achieve this goal?
Well, Catherine, I'm very excited to do this particular podcast because first and foremost, I think it's going to have a lot of very good factual information that will help solo travelers save money and plan their trips better. But, you know, in order to make travel a reality, it's like anything else in your life. You have to set it as a particular goal. And, you know, we're still at the beginning of the year. People have made their New Year's resolutions. So if you really want to travel more, make it a resolution, make it a goal. Anything that really you prioritize, for the most part, you end up making it happen. Most people don't have unlimited funds. They don't have, the ability to travel at any time. Anywhere. So they really have to decide that they're going to make this a priority. You know, when you do that, you will travel more. So bottom line, you need to decide target places that you're interested in visiting. What's your disposable income for a trip or trips? That's very important. Develop a budget. I know a lot of people, when I say budget, they go, why do I have to do that? I just decide I'm going to spend $5,000 and, that's going to be it. But if you budget, you'll be surprised. You'll be able to make your trips, first of all, a lot more enjoyable because you won't waste as much money. You'll have a better idea truly of what you're going to have to spend on the basics, as well as how much you have left over for the non-essentials that you can blow money or whatever. So it's very important to do that because it helps you focus and make the trip really a much more quality oriented. And also, if you find out when you do your pre-trip budget that it's going to cost you more money than you actually have in disposable income, you can start a little savings plan. And a lot of people do that. So whenever they finally go on their trip, they have plenty enough money to really have a great trip. That's very important, I feel also. Then, how long will your trip be? I mean, most people work unless they're retired, and they only have a certain amount of vacation days, or they only have a certain amount of money that will allow them to travel somewhere for 7 to 10 days. So decide how long you want your trip to be. And then also your travel dates, because that's very important on how much your trip is going to cost. If you're traveling in the shoulder season or the low season in a particular place, you can save a lot of money. But if you have to travel during the high season, when most people are traveling, then you have to know that beforehand. And so you have to basically decide when your dates are so you understand exactly what the reality of a trip during that period will be. So once you've decided these factors, you're basically ready to take action, and you're ready to begin researching to see, where you want to book your reservations where you want to go. And I say before you know it, you're going to be leaving on a jet plane. Because that's really kind of how it happens for me all the time. I will decide, okay, I'm going to focus on South America, and I begin researching. I pick out a couple of key destinations. I start putting together a rough budget. I look at the different times. I start deciding on particular hotel options, everything. And before I know it, I am actually in the car getting ready to go to the airport.
I bet there's something to be said about the process of almost like goal achievement, that I wonder how much that people really get something out of the fact of like planning ahead and setting that destination and then actually getting there. I mean, it's...
Well, Google has, and I might not exactly be right about this, but they have what's called a travel circle. And what it is people start... Their first inspiration for a trip really comes from some kind of just inspiration. They just get this wild idea in their head, or they see a fabulous photograph of a place, or they just decide, I need to rock climb, or there's just some kind of out of the blue something that triggers the thought about taking a trip somewhere and doing a particular thing. So that's kind of how it starts. And then once you do that, you start thinking about it more and you think, well, let me do some research. Let me see if I really want to do this. Let me see, where I can do this and like I said, what it's going to cost, blah, blah, blah. So they start doing the research. Then the picture becomes more in focus and they start to see themselves actually doing it and wanting to really do it. So then once that happens, then they finally pull the trigger and they plan, they book their flight and they book their hotel room. Once they do that, that part of the circle, they're basically on their way.
Committed.
Yes. And then you've got a lot of pre-trip activities that you need to do to make sure your trip goes smoothly and that you're prepared and there's no hiccups or the least amount of hiccups. And then you go. And then the final part of the circle is when you come back and you do kind of a recap of your trip. You see if you stayed in your budget. You see, was it really what I thought it would be? What can I learn from the experience to make my next trip great? And usually, if all of this flows smoothly, you're going to get another inspirational idea. So that's kind of the way I feel like most people end up deciding where to go and actually traveling. So basically, make travel a priority or a goal. Decide where you want to go and when. Research, budget, book, and then go.
It sounds so easy.
It is, but it does take a good planning and really getting a handle on what the reality is going to be like. Because there's nothing worse than fantasizing about a place and, you doing this, that, and the other, and you get there and you don't like it. And a lot of times that is because you haven't done enough research. You don't understand the culture as much. You forgot, this is going to have to, you can't do this. And there are a lot of little ins and outs that if you do a lot of research, that you will be ready for where you're traveling to and your trip will be much better.
You really hit upon the idea behind this entire episode, which is to look at the upcoming year in total. And this is the time of year when people are doing a lot of planning for the upcoming year, and that you could share some of your planning tips to take advantage of that perspective. So you were saying one of the key steps there in the travel circle is booking. And let's start with plane tickets. How far out should solos be purchasing their tickets? And what tips do you have for planning air travel?
Okay, well, it's really hard to give you hard, fast rules. There's so many factors that go into booking and purchasing airline tickets now. And it's different for domestic tickets. It's different for international tickets, because of all the algorithms and the computers and the different travel aggregators now. It's like a moving target. I preface the information that I'm going to share now with that particular reality. But there's a term called prime booking window, and that basically is the sweet spot. What day or days are the best day to be traveling and buy your ticket? And how far out, etc. So that prime booking window is what you're trying to seize upon. Okay, the first thing, like I said, fares change so frequently, maybe not as much internationally, but when you find a fare that you feel like is reasonable, that you can afford, buy it. Don't wait too long. Don't second guess yourself. You've got to do some of the research, but I must tell you, the more that you travel and the more that you do look at competitive fares and how much things cost and how certain airlines are definitely more budget oriented, and if you're willing to take this type of flight, etc., you kind of know what is a good fare. Now, this takes, like I said, some years of experience in doing it. But bottom line, if you find a fare that you feel like is affordable to you, I say book it, because it can change. Yeah. It can really change. Now, it can go down, and there are ways to capture that too, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that's the first thing. Second thing is booking early is as bad as booking too late.
That's what I thought. I wanted you to confirm that for me.
Yes, and that is so, lots of people don't realize. They say, well, if I book 6 months ahead of time, I'm going to get the cheapest ticket there is. Well, domestically, 6 months before a flight, the fares are basically 20% higher. Then starting at around 3 months, the price starts to drop. And then anywhere from 3 to 7 weeks out are their lowest point. And it depends on where you're going and what's happening during that time of year. There are a lot of other factors that go into this. But that 3 to 6 week window is when the tickets can hit their lowest point, okay? And then the last week they go back up 25%. So a lot of the people who've done studies and companies and everything that are watching this at all times, they say the sweet spot is 54 days in advance is the best day to buy a domestic ticket. International tickets. Now, they come online 11 months prior, and I know I was trying to book a ticket one time a year before, and I never could get anything. I thought, what is happening here? Who cares? It should give me something. No, the international tickets, you can buy them starting 11 months ahead of time. And these fares do not fluctuate as much as domestic fares, so know that. That's another reason why I told you, when you find a good fare, especially internationally, you might as well seize it, because it might only go down $20.
Yeah.
It might go down $100, but it's not going to be some big, deep discount unless you've got some competitive fare sale going on, and they are trying to discount it 20%. The best time to book internationally is between 4 and 5 months before. Now, it used to be around 90 days out, but here again, there's also different factors that go into it, like depending on where your destination is. Europe, 99 days is when that good window starts. Mexico, 61 days. That's not as far out. Central America, 61 days. South America, 81 days.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Africa, 119 days. The Caribbean, 76 days. Middle East, 119. And Asia, 90. So you see, it depends on where you're going internationally when that sweet spot starts to appear. Also, it's just basic economics. Ticket sales depend on supply and demand. And when there's less supply, it's basically more demand and the price goes up. So, and this usually occurs during the holiday season, the peak travel season. There could be a huge festival going on, so when the demand is up and the supply is down, you're going to pay more for your ticket. Best time to purchase tickets weekly, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is what all of the gurus say. I don't have any specific knowledge of this personally, but this is what is touted all the time.
So this is when that is Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard. We should be poised with our cards to click purchase.
To purchase.
Okay.
And that's totally different than buying tickets when to fly and what days are the best days to fly. The cheapest day to fly during the week, the days are Wednesday, Tuesday, and Saturday. Avoid flying on Fridays and Sundays. Those are the most expensive days. So, when you buy your ticket, it's different than when you fly. So you need to buy your ticket Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 weeks out, traveling on Tuesday to Tuesday. I mean, you have to think like this. Yeah. And there are a lot of good comparative flight websites now, Skyscanner, Kayak, TripAdvisor, that will show you in Expedia days that are cheaper to fly. The tickets are cheaper, so you can kind of change your dates that way. It's getting to be really good in terms of what the information is out there to allow you to really save the most money you can. Cheapest flights during the day: the first flight out, the lunch hour flight, and after dinner flights. We all know red eye, but those flights are cheaper than if you leave, say, around 9 o'clock in the morning or, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or, right after work. No, you want to get after dinner or the red eye or that first horrible 5:45 flight in the morning where you have to be at the airport at 3:30. Oh, yeah. But let me tell you, those are usually the flights too that they leave on time, and there are a lot of benefits to be the first flight out.
It's before the chaos of the domino effect has started. Yeah.
Oh yes. Okay. Cheaper to fly out of big cities versus smaller ones. It's cheaper to fly out of New Orleans and Baton Rouge for most everything. So, if you can drive an hour to a big city, a big international airport, you're going to save some money typically. Use Kayak, Expedia, and Skyscanner for their price comparisons. Like I said, they do a great job with this. Now, there are a couple of things that you have to understand, and a lot of people know this, and they're much more tech savvy than I am. I am not that tech savvy, but I'm trying very hard to get that way. One thing you have to watch out for is when you are looking at how much a flight is going to cost. One of my recommendations is to put in some phantom dates. Don't put in the exact dates that you're going to be flying. Do it maybe a month ahead or a month afterwards, because the computer and how everything is, they know. And when you start looking the third time, those tickets are going up every time. So if you know how to clean out your cookies, or if you can do your research on another computer, try to fool these sites, because they are very, AI is something else. And so when they know you want to go somewhere, those flights will start to creep up. So you need to watch out for that. Then another thing that they do is really good is they have price alerts, especially on certain flights. And sign up for them, because those are very good. That'll kind of help you with that prime booking window.
Do you do that per particular sites, or do you have a Google alert for flights?
Well, the site will tell you. There'll be a little drop-down box. Do you want to sign up for price alerts?
Okay, so it's per site.
Yeah, and it's not for every flight. It's there's a mystery to all of that too. Okay, next tip. Use frequent flyer points for the longer flights. If you want to fly business class, say Etihad or Air Emirates or Emiratis or Singapore, of which I have done, use those frequent flyer points. Let me tell you, that is where you get a lot of bang for all of those charges that you put on American Express. Because, those tickets can run you anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000, depending on how far you're traveling, the dates, the airlines, etc. So I save up those points for long travel, long hauls on these wonderful, very, very fine airlines. So that's a good tip. Check out low-cost airlines. Now, the low-cost airlines are becoming more and more accepted. I guess Southwest was the first one that really did it right. And so now, you've got Ryanair. Internationally, you have Norwegian Air, WOW, domestically Spirit Air. These airlines, a lot of them have brand new aircraft. And they really are. They're using the Dreamliner, and they're doing a lot of things that can give you a really, really inexpensive ticket. Now, one thing you have to watch out is they add on fees for everything. Water. I'm surprised they don't charge to use the restroom.
That's what I was going to ask.
But baggage fees. Oh, yeah. If you want an upgrade, a meal, anything, let me tell you, and then the ticket can become not as competitive as say a non-low budget air carrier. But if you're willing to take a small carry-on bag and not eat anything and just sit there.
Keep to yourself.
Yeah. Bring your own music. Don't get their earphones. You can save a lot of money. A lot of money. Then also, one of the last things is consider premium economy versus business class. Now, I don't personally like to fly economy anymore unless if the flight is more than, say, 3.5 hours, especially if it's internationally, no, because the planes are a lot bigger and the economy section is very large. I hate to admit it, I'm older, so I like it to be, I like to have more space and to be a nicer flying experience. So, but I have been using a premium economy to offset some of the cost of the business class ticket. When it's up around $3,500, you can get it down to about $1,200. And like with Air France has a beautiful premium economy. On my last trip to Paris, we flew out of Atlanta. And one of the things about premium economy, you get to go in the nice lounges. the private lounges. You get, preferential boarding treatment, and it's really quite nice. Well, this airport lounge in Atlanta, this Air France, was beautiful. It actually had an outdoor courtyard where you could sit out and eat, have a glass of wine, and watch the planes take off outside. Now, a lot of them, you can watch them obviously in the lounge, but this was really, the whole thing, the food was excellent. The service was excellent, and that outside, courtyard lounge, I thought, oh, I love this, because I love to sit outside. So it really made, a 4-hour layover, go quickly. It's really, very nice. So, look into premium economy.
Let's go to lodging. Is there an optimal time to book hotels?
I'll do another disclaimer. It's a hard question to answer because there are a lot of things that go into it. First, like the airfare, to book too early is bad. I know that just sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. You need to start checking prices around 40 days ahead of when you want to leave. And really don't book anything after or after like a month before. A month before, like I would say 30 to 40 days before you're starting to get in the right zone. Okay? But last minute rates, you can get some of the most unbelievably cheap hotel rooms if you do that. But you risk not getting a room.
Yeah.
But they can go down as much as 40-50%. So, that's a risk you have to take. If you think in a low season, you can get a room at the Intercontinental or whatever, you might zing it down to a really good price. Trivago. It is a booking web, aggregate, a site that shows you a lot of different other booking sites and prices of hotels. They're very good. Well, they did a study about when is the best time to book rooms in Europe. And this is what they found. To book rooms in Spain, you need to do it between 4 and 5 weeks ahead. France, 2 to 5 weeks. You can go 2 weeks out. You can, you could get a really good rate. Germany, 3 to 4 weeks out. Italy, 3 to 6 weeks out. So there's even a difference between countries in Europe. When is the best time to book or have that premium booking window that I talked about? 3 months out, most expensive. Don't do that. Non-refundable reservations can be a lot cheaper. Yeah. Especially like Booking.com, they're great about this. They start out with your non-refundable rate. Then they have, refundable rate, blah, blah, blah. So there's gradations of room types and whether the fare, the charge will be refundable or not. Some of them, all you have to do is put one deposit. Some of them you don't have to do anything and pay till you get there. It just depends. It depends on the hotel. It depends on the time you're traveling. It depends on the booking site, and it changes all the time. But if you do the non-refundable rate, which I usually always do, you have to buy travel insurance. And I always buy travel insurance when I go internationally. So you offset the risk of losing your money. Okay?
Yeah, I like this.
So, that's very good. Holiday, peak season, festivals, large business conventions, the rooms will always be more expensive. You need to book them earlier than normal because probably if you wait too late or get too close to those prime window booking dates that I talked about, you might not be able to get a room in the end.
Yeah.
Because, there are only certain finite amount of rooms in certain cities that are big cities for different big events. Interesting fact, this one is Airbnb. There are no best times to book. The rates never go up and they never go down.
Huh.
They're always the same.
I was wondering if you're going to bring in Airbnb. That's interesting.
Yeah. I didn't know that myself. Now this next fact or tip deals with, here again, the algorithms and how hotels are changing their room rates depending on supply and demand, and booked reservations, whether it's for sure or just holding it and not pressing the button to really pay for everything. But they review their bookings every 90, 60, 30, 15, 14, and 1 day out. So on those days is when the room rate can change dramatically, up or down, depending on, a certain aggregator has tied up 15 rooms. 60 days out, they don't have but 5 of them reserved. They might let go of 7 of the rooms. That goes back to the hotel. So their ratio goes up. So, there's more supply, not as much demand. Price will go down. So these are key dates too, and they play into this musical musical chairs of hotel room prices. So kind of be a little bit aware of that when you're booking.
Can you say those dates again, the numbers for the hotels?
90 days out, 60 days out, 30 days out. So 3, 2, 1 month, then 2 weeks out, then 14 days out, or basically really 2 weeks out, and then 1 day out. 6 p.m. the night before is when you get the greatest rates. So if you want if you want to scrape down and take a chance, this is when they hit the best time, okay? The worst time to book is when you're there. A lot of people, I remember when I used to travel, when I was in college, I would just go to Amsterdam, pull into Antwerp, and go to the tourist bureau desk there at the train station, say, I need a room, blah, blah, blah. And, you could usually find something that was decent at a pretty good price. But let me tell you something. That is no way to find a good hotel rate, is just to show up on that day. They're going to stick it to you. I mean, you might be able to negotiate something down, but they know that you're ready to put your bags in a room.
They got you. They got you at that point.
Yeah, so don't do that. Don't think you're that smart, because that is not smart. Business hotels, consider them, because let me tell you, they can be so nice and get you great rates. I remember in Singapore, the West End had just opened up. It was fabulous. And the room rate, I can't really remember what it was, but it was significantly less than the Fullerton and the Flagler. I think it was a Flagler hotel. But it was a 5-star, beautiful, brand new hotel. It was focused on wellness. Weston has this focus in a lot of their business hotels on wellness, which they pride themselves on fabulous beds and super quiet rooms. And the food is very organic and health-oriented. Their spas have all kinds of extra types of treatment. So their whole focus is having a stay that is focused on wellness. So, but business hotels, especially on the weekend, you can get great rates because that's when they're not as in demand. So look at those hotels when you're looking at where you want to stay, because you can get a lot of bang for your buck, as well as your resort hotels during the week can be cheaper than on the weekend starting on Thursdays. So think like that too. Be a little counterintuitive.
Yeah. That's kind of like it's a little bit related to the shoulder season where you're going against the highs. I don't know how to say that.
Well, it's supply and demand again. Okay. Also, not a lot of people, but some people will call the hotel directly. They'll go through all the sites and they'll see the prices and they'll call the hotel directly and say, look, I would like to stay in your hotel, can you give me a room rate? And they'll kind of lowball it. A lot of people have been successful in doing this. Now, do not call the 1-800 number because that is not going to get you the magic reduced rate. But if you find the direct line to the hotel, sometimes you can really negotiate a really good rate. So, think about that too. The last two tips are new hotels sometimes have great rates. The ones that are just opening, like that West End that I talked about, they had just opened up, and let me tell you, those rates were just absolutely fantastic. I think they were like $210 a night. And in Singapore, for a 5-star hotel, Singapore is as expensive as any major city in the world, and especially these hotels in good areas. And this was in a gorgeous, brand new, mixed use, very upscale development area. Oh man, that hotel! I will continue to talk about how wonderful that hotel is. So consider new hotels. Then the last thing, sign up for the price alerts because they have price alerts on hotel rooms too. And some sites will allow you to seize upon the lower rate if you haven't locked in, say, a non-refundable one or something like that. There are all these little qualifications that come in that will keep you from being able to seize that lower rate. But those price alerts can also save you 10-15% at least.
Okay, let's move on to our pre-trip research. And you did touch a little bit on this earlier, but how far in advance should people begin their pre-trip research? And we know for Solo Travel Talk listeners, that means when should we start watching our YouTube videos?
Oh, yeah, I love those videos. I was watching them before we... I'm thinking about Buenos Aires. And I was watching some YouTube videos and that, and just watching those tango lessons and everything. I was thinking, yeah, I mean, that is so... There's just something about the elegance of tango and that whole kind of culture down there that I'm going to that's probably this year one of my destinations. But start your research really as early as possible. As soon as you get those dream ideas, those inspirations, start your research because, that will begin to give you an idea of whether you really want to go somewhere or not. So when you start doing it, get yourself a journal. I am big on this. Get a journal where you start writing down anything that you see on the internet or you read in a travel guide or you see on a YouTube video or whatever. Write it down in the journal. Things you want to do, restaurants that look interesting, cultural do's and don'ts, something about the history, just different things that you read that are important to understanding the place and basically how you want to spend your time there. Because, I like a lot of times to have a focus with a trip. Say, maybe I want to focus on gardens or, the flora and the fountains, the flora of a place. So I'll do tours of gardens. I'll go, to botanical gardens, desert gardens, secret gardens, flower shops, all kinds of different things. I even took when I was in Bangkok, because I love flowers. I don't know. The older I get, the more I'm into nature. But there was a very interesting flower tour where you went to the flower market in Bangkok. You saw, the different artisans sewing the flower arrangements and the different things. I mean, flowers in Thailand are very important in their culture. Then after you went all through the flower market and you learned about a lot of different things about flowers and the meaning of them in the Thai culture and everything, you went to the Floral Cultural Institute, which a gentleman by the name of Sakul Iktakul, I think is his name. Well, he owns it and is the director of it. And he is an internationally famous floral designer. He designs flowers for fashion shows, for the royal family in Thailand, for a lot of very wealthy people who do a lot of very interesting functions. He is a genius. I mean, not only is he just so skillful in his designs, but he was an engineer by training, but he also is a sculptor. So he combines flower arrangements in these fabulous modern sculptures. And this institute that he has is housed in an old British colonial mansion. And it has a gorgeous yard that he has done all kinds of plantings and everything in. And he has classes out there in an open veranda with a pool. I mean, it's just... But my point is I did so much research before I went to Bangkok, and I found all of this, and I decided to do it, and it was absolutely such a memorable experience. I hope to revisit it. He's a Facebook friend of mine. I follow everything he does because he really is an extraordinary human being. And his passion are flowers and flower arranging. I mean, he creates like chandeliers of flowers. Just all these different kinds of objects that you would never think to use flowers to create. Oh, it's just out of this world. When you're doing your research, log it in to a journal, because you don't want to forget any of this. And if you will, I can tell you. Also start logging in the hotels that interest you, and kind of try to boil it down to 5. Same thing with the flights. You log in the different flights, when they're leaving, dates, this kind of thing. And then once you've done that, you kind of get an idea of cost and times and etc. Do a phantom bundle, which Expedia is great for this. Your flight and your hotel together. You can save sometimes as much as 30% by doing that. You'll save somewhere at 15% for sure. But that is a very good way if you want to stay in a really nice hotel to bring down that average nightly cost if you bundle it with your airfare. Okay? So, and write all this down. Don't just you keep it in your head. No, write it down. Now, your long trips definitely are more expensive, so you want to start planning earlier. So, because you don't want to waste money, waste time, etc. I know when I took my round the world trip, that was going to be very expensive for me, and I had a target budget of like $30,000, and that included airfare and everything. So I really did a lot of research to get those room rates down, the business class tickets just right. I knew how much money I had to spend each day on food and blow money. So, and you can't just decide, a couple of months out and start. It becomes overwhelming. So the longer the trip, you start out earlier with your research. When I went to Paris in November, I started about 4 months ahead of time. And I've been to Paris 8 times at least. But I started over like I was just the first time I was there. Because you will find new things, and there will be things that you overlooked before that you should have done, etc. Domestic, it depends on where you're going. The bigger the city, a little further out, if you've never been there before, maybe 3 months out, that's kind of long. But still, it gives you enough time to think about things and say, yeah, I definitely am going to do that. Or no, I don't think I really want to do that. So, 3 months, 2 months out, depending on where it is, and really how long you're staying. You want to have all the information, like I said, logged into the journal before you book your flight and your hotel, because you want to know, ideally, how many days you need to spend there to do everything you want to book. And you don't want to be there too long or not enough. So by doing this research, you'll get a very good idea of really how long the trip should be and what you need to discard. You can't do that, So that's important. Then, I mentioned this at the beginning, create that pre-trip budget from the research that you've done. So you'll know if it's going to cost more than really you've got in disposable income, and you can start saving some. That'll help so much. And I do that myself, and I travel a lot. So it helps a lot in terms of credit card shock and all of that. Then, go for as much information as you can. Travel guides, internet. And when you're on the internet, read articles, blogs, travel websites, city and tourism websites, TripAdvisor reviews, Astrid Solo Travel Advisor website. I've got some great blogs on hotels, on restaurants, on do's and don'ts, cultural tips, everything. YouTube videos. This is one of I consider my unique tips for everybody, because people don't think to do that, but there are wonderful videos about hotels, hotel rooms, restaurants, do's and don'ts, everything. If you just Google cool things to do in Buenos Aires, you're going to get all kinds of YouTube videos. Some of them will be professionally made. Some of them will be just personal experiences. It doesn't matter. And the more you Google them and you watch them, the ones that you think are dumb, you'll click out of them. But they help you so much with your visualization about the way the place is actually going to be, the rhythm of the place, how people are dressing, whether you want to go to a flea market, this particular flea market, or, this hotel is much better than the other 3 that I'm considering. Those videos, I tell you, I rely on them, I would say almost more than the written word. They're excellent, and they're becoming more and more popular, and there are more of them on there. Podcasts, Solo Travel Talk. But podcasts are a very good resource. And, what's so great about podcasts, you don't have to read, or you don't have to use your eyes. You could be driving. You could be in your bed. It doesn't matter. And all you have to do is listen. But you have your journal there because you want to write down if somebody says something good. You don't want to forget it. And then, of course, magazine articles, print in itself. And there's still some very good travel magazines that you can, and what I do is I just tear out the page. If I find something I really like, I tear it out, and I have a file system that's just, I probably have a library now that's really kind of, worth something. I have been collecting things for so long, but do all this as your research. Then, and the more research, really, the better, because it'll save you money. It'll help you plan exactly what you want to do. You won't waste as much time. And it'll also help you prepare for what I've talked about before in other podcasts, culture shock. Because that happens every time you travel. When you go somewhere new, just arriving there, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the way that even the people look, everything, it's different from where you live. And you're going to have a little bit of a period where it takes a while to just kind of get familiar and be in tune with this new place. But if you watch those videos and you do your research, you'll be prepared. You know, if nobody chews gum and it's against the law, like in Singapore, if you love to chew gum and you don't know that, and so you get tapped on the shoulder by the secret police or the what do you call it? They don't wear the uniforms. They're incognito.
Undercover, yeah.
Well, they're not. They're just like street police, but they'll tap you on the shoulder and say, and you'll get fined for chewing gum. Don't even have gum in your purse. That's against the law. The more research you do, really, the more memorable I think your trip will be. And I'll use my Paris trip as example. I wanted to go to Paris and focus on women things because I'm at the age where I kind of wanted to have like a redo or a makeover. And you know, the Parisian women, they pride themselves on being attractive, you know, no matter what their age. So, I thought, well, I'm in the mood to kind of have a redo. So I thought, I'm going to go to Paris to do it. Well, I mean, I started 4 months ahead of time, and I decided I wanted to go to a stylist and have a Parisian stylist give me tips on dressing, especially for my age. I decided I wanted to go to the best hairdresser in Paris to have my hair cut and reshaped. I did that. I decided I read an article about making your own scent or your own perfume, which I thought, now isn't that cool? And you know, Paris, where, you know, in France, where smell is so important, and they just have a profusion of wonderful perfumes and, you know, different fashion houses that have made fabulous perfumes, and they all come out of a certain area in France, in Provence. I thought, I would like to make my own scent. I did that. I went to the Dior exhibit. I went to the Yves Saint Laurent Museum. I shopped on the Avenue Montaigne. I did all kinds of fashion, women-oriented things, and it was really one of the best trips I've ever had in my 40-plus years of traveling, because I had done so much specific research and I had a good focus. So I really do stress that the more you do it, the better your trip is going to be. And you won't be overwhelmed at all your choices when you get there, because that happens to a lot of people. If they really haven't planned well enough, they say, well, I think I'm going to do this today. And you end up wasting time, and it's just you don't really know what's better to do, etc. Then a month before I booked the flight in a hotel, and I really have completed all my research, I actually make a master to-do list of everything that I want to do. And then I prioritize the must-dos. From there, I try to start mapping out on a map where certain things are, so I can get it down and actually do a rough itinerary. Now, most people don't go to that much planning, but if you can do that, and what I do with my itinerary, I actually type it out and make copies of it. I give it to, you know, my husband and whoever's following my trip, and I have an extra copy for myself. But that is great. those itineraries, and you can do that if you do enough research and then you map things out and then you say, okay, I'm going to, like in Paris, I was going to focus on the 8th arrondissement on 2 days. And I did everything in there. So, I mean, I knew where I was going to eat. I knew where this museum was, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't waste time going from the 1st to the 3rd to the, to the 4th. And also when I do these itineraries, I follow pretty much this format. I do 2 things in the morning. I have a lunch. Then I have 2 afternoon activities, and usually I break it up with some kind of snack or coffee or gelato or something. Dinner, and then some kind of evening activity. I don't always go out in the evening, but I usually try to do either a night tour or maybe go to a show or whatever. But that's how I plan my day. Because you don't want to do or try to plan too much. Yeah. Because if you do that, you'll get burned out. You'll be rushing around. And then a lot of times those serendipitous moments, you'll crowd them out. And if something is, you're having a great time somewhere, just let it go with the flow. Don't worry unless you have to go to somewhere else and you can't change or be flexible and do it another day, then you have to cut things off. But, but if you have a plan and kind of a plan for every day that's reasonable, it really, it makes for a great trip. Now, one thing about when you're planning these itineraries, the first day, I always say take it slow and easy, especially if you've traveled, on a long flight or whatever, and you're getting rid of or trying to deal with the jet lag and the time zones. Don't do too much that first day, okay? Then also let your concierge see your itinerary and let them weigh in on if you've got this planned out right, or if you're missing something, or if what you want to do is not so hot. They'll help you a whole lot. And I use them all once I get there and I get settled in, I meet with the concierge and say, look, this is my itinerary. I need tickets for this, blah, blah, blah. And they're great. So I'm always talking about concierges. Use them. I mean, they can really help you make your trip great. Also, be flexible. If you miss something, don't freak out. Try to reorient it, because that's another thing that happens when you travel. I don't care how much you plan, things are going to change. But, if you've got that itinerary and that focus, you can go back at night and decide what you want to redo or what's really must do, etc. Most travelers don't do the itinerary, but I can tell you, from my experience, they work like magic. It's kind of like if you write something down, it's going to probably end up happening. So I really do want to stress that, the more planning you do, you write it down, you create an itinerary, all that helps make your trip really great. So, it gets you ready to go.
How far in advance are you doing this itinerary?
Well, I usually, like I said, about a month before. It's really before I book the hotel and plane ticket.
Oh, wow.
Because I want to know exactly how long I'm going to be there. So then I have the key amount of days. And so, I'll know that I have to do this, this, and this. So I'll have to stay 8 days in Paris. So I do it right before really I decide my real dates and how long I'm going to stay.
I like it because I feel like a little bit of your philosophy is coming through where you're giving yourself the trip you want rather than trying to fit the trip you want into the days that you have.
Oh, yeah. You are visualizing it and creating it like you want it to happen. And I find that really works.
Any final plan ahead items we haven't covered?
Oh, yeah. There's a list.
Oh, no.
This is the pre-trip to-dos at home.
Okay.
And that's very important. 6 weeks ahead of time, you make sure you've got your visas and your passport is current and it is got a window date that it doesn't expire 6 months before your travel dates, because some cruises won't let you on the cruise, or flights won't let you on the flights. So it's really important that you make sure that those documents are all correct. 2 months ahead, immunizations and any health information. If you're going to an exotic place, you're going to have to get yourself immunized. You want to know everything about the health risk, what you need to do to protect yourself in terms of eating, viruses, everything. Before your trip, this could actually be the day before, but I usually do it a week before. Register with the Smart Travel Enrollment Program with the U.S. State Department if you're a U.S. citizen. A week before, alert your bank, credit card companies of your money needs and where you're going to be traveling so they don't block your cards. Also, get your cash that you're going to need. A week before, stop your mail and your newspapers. 2 weeks before, arrange for your bills to be paid if we're going to be gone when your bills are going to be coming due. 2 weeks or maybe even a little bit before, arrange for the pet boarding. And the day before you got to bring your pet and everything. And for people who have pets, let me tell you, that's one of the tougher things. They hate to leave their pets, but you got to make sure you've got all of that covered. 1 week before, make copies of the itinerary, your passport, hotel flight information, anything that you need, copies of credit cards and those numbers if your wallet gets stolen. All that stuff is important because if you have some kind of blip or mix up or you lose something, if you have all that there, it's a lot easier to solve the problem. And give your family or your friend, significant other who is, who care about you, a copy of all this. Travel insurance. When you book your hotel and your flight, that's when you need to buy the travel insurance, because they're key things. If certain things happen before you buy it, like floods or something, or hurricane season or whatever, and the alert is already put in place, that will prevent you from collecting any monies lost or damages if that event happens. So when you book your tickets, your flight and your hotel reservation, you buy your travel insurance then. 2 weeks before, check the weather. Before you start packing. And like I usually pack for international trip, I know this sounds like real far in advance, but I usually start about 3 weeks in advance because I don't want to overpack and I want to think about what I'm packing. And that's my rhythm, but minimum 2 weeks before. But make sure you check that weather and you check it daily because we all know that weather is becoming more and more volatile. And, you don't want to be heading out and the first thing you have to buy is a big down coat because there was a huge cold front that came in and you forgot your gloves, your hat, and then you spend $300, $400 making sure that you don't catch pneumonia. So, that's very important. Then when you're packing, go ahead and use a packing list. And I know on all my shows I offer my packing list, but it really helps you not forget something tech-wise or something, that, your meds or just something that, if you're in a rush or you're so excited about going, you forget to think about. So use a list. I even use a list. And like I said, I've been traveling for 40 plus years. Enroll in what's called TSA pre-check or the global entry. If you can have that and you can bypass all those horrible lines, then the airport experience is a lot nicer. And that's really one of the downsides of travel, I think, nowadays. Then a day before, confirm your flight reservation and, basically log in online. And the day of the trip, leave early. I mean, I keep telling myself that because more and more things will cause you to have some kind of delay. So if you're supposed to be there 2 hours ahead, just plan on being 3 hours ahead and leave your house even earlier than you think you need to get there. I'm telling you, it will save you a lot of stress because I've almost missed flights. Like this last time I was in Ireland, I left the hotel, I think something like 3 hours before. And we got in this horrible traffic jam on the interstate. And I barely made it to check in to my flight. Now, if I would have missed that, oh my God, it would have started the domino effect down. So just leave earlier than you want to. Bring a book or, earphones or something and just don't cut it too close because it's a real bummer when things go wrong. So that's my list of pre-trip things that I think, and the dates kind of when you need to start or having accomplished those tasks.
Well, you have all these dates, you have all this pre-trip planning, you have everything you need. So we are really hoping that everybody gets out and does all the traveling that they want to do this year ahead of us. And I'm thinking that I want people to let us know that they've made that commitment to go travel and that they're going to do it and they're planning ahead and they're going to actually make it happen. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. And I love people to comment or, of course, subscribe.
Yes.
But the bottom line is, if you have any questions about these tips or you found a tip really good, because others read that and they, it helps everybody, when you do give feedback, etc. So, but I do hope that these tips have been insightful and will help you save money, will help you plan better, and will help you actualize your goal of traveling more.
Astrid mentioned the packing list. You can find that on her website, astridtravel.com. It's right there on the homepage. You just give us your email and you can download that packing list right away. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, and any of the finer places that podcasts can be found. Like Astrid said, subscribe, please. That not only helps the show, but it helps other solo travelers find this information. Thanks so much for listening. Plan ahead. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Solo Travel Talk. Follow Astrid on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. To learn more about Astrid or Solo Travel Advisors, visit our website, astridtravel.com.